No problem, man.
And welcome back to the show, listeners. We've got a very, very special guest lined up for you right now. There is a brand new horror film. It's kind of a psychological horror, I've got to say, called Hypnotica, that is being released this week. And we thought we would actually get the director of the film on the phone to talk a little bit about this film, because I found this one of the most interesting films I've seen this year so far. Welcome to the program, A.T. Sharma.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I really appreciate it.
So, A.T., tell us a little bit about Hypnotica. Where did this idea come from for you in the first place?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, Dave. I had the idea quite a while ago. Not the idea for the movie itself, but I saw this movie about Freud many years ago, and it was kind of like a docudrama, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And it was just this kind of actor playing Freud and a patient, and they were in a room, and there was no other visuals or anything, and he was hypnotizing the patient, and they were going into the patient's mind, into their history and everything else, and I was like, wow, it's amazing how like fascinating that was for me. And so after that, I just got interested in the subject, and then I looked into past life regression and into all kinds of things related to hypnotism, where it could lead, and what's locked up in our minds, that kind of thing.
Tell us a little bit about that research. What kind of things did you discover when you were doing your investigation into hypnotism, but also past lives? Because past lives is something that really fascinates me.
Well, so first of all, I'm a doctor, and so after I finished med school, I did a weekend course of hypnotism, and but I wasn't able to hypnotize anybody. And I wasn't able to be hypnotized, but it was fascinating to me. And so then the research I started doing was, there was a professor by the name of Stevenson many years ago in the 60s who really started looking at this stuff. And he was out of the University of Virginia. And so he started researching kind of like kids, especially in Asia and India, and these children between the ages of roughly 3 and 6 or 7 would recount past lives, and they would have such amazing detail about it. And so they went and tried to find the people, and it was usually like, when he first started, it was like in another village, like say 25 miles away, a person who had died. And usually the people from past lives are usually people who've died in some kind of violent fashion, or their lives have ended abruptly, which is a strange phenomenon. But anyway, this original girl, her name was Kumkum, described in detail things about the person that there's no way possible for her to know. And they were able to find that person in another village, which was, quite far away. This girl was only like 3 or 4 years old. She's never been to that village or anything like that. And she described everything. There was, the person slept with a sword above their bed. They fed milk to a little pet snake they had. All these kinds of things, Dave. So it was really, and then there's been a lot of research since then. And then even with adults, there was case. There's several cases with adults, but there was one particular one, Jane Evans, and she had like 6 past lives, and one of them was in when during the Roman occupation of England, going back, and she was the wife of Titus, and she had basically a high school education, nothing else. And feel free to cut me off at any time if I'm rambling.
No, that's fine. No, it's really fascinating.
So let me just finish. So she basically recounted details from a very obscure period of history, details which she would have no way of knowing. She didn't study history or anything like that, and those details all lined up. And her first 3 lives that she recounted were surprisingly accurate. And even like going back like 1996, Carl Sagan said that some of these case studies with the children, there was no plausible explanation, no scientific explanation, other than the presentation that it was potentially some sort of past life regression.
So how did you use all of that research then to put together the screenplay for Hypnotica?
So then I started to think about, what, first of all, what we could do with the money we had to make a movie. So it had to be contained. And, so I thought, well, and I went back to that Freud movie that I had seen many years ago. And I thought if we could do it right, we could have a situation where we could go into somebody's mind and we think we're seeing or hearing about something, but it turns out to be something else.
So you mentioned before that you're a doctor. Where did your love for filmmaking come from, and when did you decide that you wanted to write and direct your own film?
Yeah, good question. I'm still trying to figure that one out a little bit, but look, there was. It goes back even before medical school. Before I got accepted into medical school, I wanted to study philosophy, and so I went, and this was at Dalhousie University. I grew up in Canada, so Dalhousie University is in Nova Scotia, Canada, and so I was doing my master's thesis, and I got accepted into medical school, and so, but I really wanted to study metaphysics and philosophy, so I went over to the philosophy department, and I went to the head of the philosophy department, who was actually the head of metaphysics. And I just took a chance, and he was there. He was in his office, and it was, Dave, it was the classic kind of picture of a guy smoking a pipe, his feet up on the desk, that kind of thing. And I knocked on the door and I said, Professor Tompkins, could I ask you a question? And he said, sure, come in, sit down. And I said, listen, I've been accepted into medical school, but I really want to study philosophy. And I remember the look on his face. He took his feet off the desk. He leaned over the desk and he says, are you stupid? He says, I've got PhD students graduating that can't get a job. Go to medical school. So I went to medical school, and while I was in medical school, a friend was going to film school at Concordia, and I just got fascinated by that, and then I got into filmmaking, and when I graduated medical school, I went to Toronto, and I was practicing in the ER in Toronto, and then I went to film school at NYU. So I took 2 months off from practicing, and I went to NYU School of Continuing Education, and then I did a short film in Canada that did really well, and then another one, and then I found myself down in Los Angeles, which is where I am now.
So going into a feature film, what was the big difference that you noticed from doing short films to a feature film? Because we have a lot of young film students that listen to this show. What was the big difference you noticed going from short film to a feature film?
Well, I thought that if I thought feature film would just be an extension of a short film, and it's nothing to me. For me personally, and I don't know what other people think about it, but for me, it's two different worlds entirely. A short film has a completely different structure. It has a different way of doing it. Feature film, it just is so labor intensive. Dave, it just takes so much. Every minute on screen is so many things are involved, and then you're looking at the overall structure where that fits in with the overall, the film. If it's a 90-minute film, where are we in the 90 minutes? Have we still got the audience? And the idea for me always in a movie is to have a movie that has something under the surface. Otherwise, there's no reason to make it. It has to be some subtext and a reason for making the movie, and so you want to have that coming across, and you want to kind of be a half step ahead of the audience if possible. If you're a full step ahead, I think you've gone too far, and then you sometimes lose some of the audience, and then they don't enjoy it. And if they're with you, they certainly don't enjoy it. So it's very different. With a short film, you kind of lead them one way, and then you give them a surprise twist at the end usually, and that's a short film.
Definitely. Now, one of the things that really stood up with this film as well is the cast. They are absolutely amazing. Tell us a little bit about your casting process.
Well, the cast, thank you for that, first of all. I'll pass that along, Dave. The cast was like, we did, the next film we're in development for is called Creature. So we were actually having a cold reading for Creature. And my producer, Netu, met Adam, and he brought Adam along to read for the main role in Creature. And while he was reading, I thought, man, this guy's really good. And so, but we didn't have the money to make Creature. So when I was writing for Hypnotica, which was originally called Unhinged, then I was thinking of Adam, when I was writing. And so that's how he came about. But in Los Angeles, I mean, look, it's you can throw a rock and hit some amazing actors around here. I mean, so we had auditions and we had some really terrific people show up, and so it wasn't a problem. And then we just we found somebody that we liked for the role, for the other roles.
Yeah, I was going to say Marissa is fantastic in this. Was she one of the people that came to the audition, and what was it about her that made you decide, yes, she can play the Doctor?
Oh, wow. So, nobody asked me that question before. No, look, Netu brought her into the auditions, and we were auditioning a lot of people for that role, but she had a warmth, she had a warmth and a compassion in her eyes, and that's hard to fake. And so, I thought, she's really good. So we brought her back again, and she was even better the second time. And so that's how we cast her.
Awesome. Well, for our listeners out there, Hypnotica lands on the streaming platforms this week. So we recommend that you go out and watch this film because you are going to absolutely love it. AT, what would you like to say to people out there who are about to sit down and watch it?
Well, that's good. I mean, look, first of all, I appreciate it. And secondly, I think just, relax, enjoy it, let your mind go. And in those hypnosis sessions, let your mind go like you're the one being hypnotized. And that's it. And hopefully you enjoy it.
Amazing. Well, listeners, make sure you check out Hypnotica this week. AT, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. It's been an absolute honor having you on the show.
My pleasure, Dave. Anytime.